Welcome to Writers at the Well, a podcast that offers intimate conversations with authors about how they draw words and images up from the depths of their inner well. How do they move into a flow state? Do they meditate? Walk in nature? Do they do cartwheels? Let's find out. I'm your host, Tess Callahan, author of the novels April and Oliver and Dawnland. I hope you enjoy this deep dive into the inner workings of the creative process. My guest today is Don Freas, Olympia, Washington-based sculptor, poet, speaker, author, meditator, and author of the books Swallowing the World, New and Selected Poems, and newly published In Between, Creativity Set Free, a book about his sculpture. Welcome, Don.
Thank you for inviting me.
Delight to have you. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to start out by asking, since this is a meditation podcast, what you think of as meditation, how you define meditation for yourself.
That is a moving target in many ways. I do have a regular practice of meditation that every day that's involved with the Qigong practice. It's called Liangong. It's a fairly new practice of Qigong, and it gives me a half hour every morning. It's like the first thing I do every morning that just focuses on my body. There's 54 positions that you get into. And like everything else, I notice that the more that I can just stay with the present, what's happening, the more I feel the effects for my body and for my mind. So that's the sort of the linchpin of my meditation. But as I get older, I'm finding that in a way, life is meditation. More and more it becomes part of every day. I remember many times that I've been to meditation retreats and experienced the deep dive into meditation. And then coming out from there, the way it can close off again, the way it can, like you're back to your home, let's say, and all of a sudden the same patterns are working in your head. And so I think for me, it's become more of an inquiry into the mind, what we are, what the mind is. And so it begins to fill my whole day. So that's kind of a brief introduction to a huge topic.
Yeah. I wonder if having a somatic meditation practice like that, like Qigong, that's embodied, helps you to carry it into your day and helps you to, not have that phenomena where, let's say, you leave a meditation retreat and the door closes because you're using your body, and then we're moving our bodies throughout the day, including in our art. So I wonder if that's something you have evolved towards and found more sustainable in terms of showing up then in your everyday life.
Absolutely. That's another piece I might have added, is that I recognize the somatic aspects of woodworking and welding and writing are very much a part of contemplation, meditation, inquiry, because the more that I can just be present to whatever is happening, the deeper it goes, and the quicker it goes, for that matter, too. And when I, use it to notice when I'm feeling frustrated or other feelings that might come through, like when I have a process of welding or woodworking that is, repetitive, maybe many steps over and over, the more I can lean into it. If I'm just staying present, I'm only doing this piece of the repetitive activity. It all goes much more smoothly. And even there's times when I notice wait a minute, I think I had 10 of these to do. I feel like I just did 5, but they're all done. So almost that sense that somebody else is helping me get it done. You know? And the same with writing. You're a writer too, and I know that you probably know the same, that there's a difference between generating the writing and sort of correcting and editing the writing. And they're two very different meditations. And so sometimes I notice it's the time of day when I'm better at generating and just being present to what's flowing out of the pen. And other times when it's much better for me to be at the typewriter or the computer, of course, and feeling my way through editing and seeing how many words I can get rid of, that kind of thing. Yeah. So both very
That's fascinating.
Powerful meditations. The more you can stay present with it, that seems to be the key.
Yeah, staying present even when maybe something feels tedious or repetitive, like doing whatever, I don't know, I don't do sculpture, but I can imagine, I have that experience chopping vegetables when I'm cooking dinner. So that's very interesting to use that as an opportunity to notice the frustration, to notice where it's showing up somatically, where I feel it in my body, and then to just focus on the slice of carrot I'm cutting and not the 5 I have to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I can always do it. I can always do it if I remember, but sometimes there is forgetting, and I'll note, I can notice it because it gets frustrating or something, or I wish this was done, but
right.
The fact of the matter is it's the only time you're actually alive is right there in the present. And so might as well be where you're alive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that being willing to be present to that in that moment of frustration or discomfort or tedium seems like it could be the pivotal moment that pushes you past what might otherwise stop you and say, well, this shouldn't be so hard, or I'll do something simpler, I'll just put it down. But I wonder if that sometimes then leads to a breakthrough or a kind of new discovery, or it just allows you to continue on something that might otherwise seem just overwhelming.
Absolutely. That's where the fact of it's the study of the mind, and what is suffering, what is frustrated. It's the mind. It's not anything else, because the mind has ideas. It's a collection of beliefs and traumas and all kinds of pieces we've each uniquely put into that sort of thought cloud that we call the mind. And there's a way in which it begins to decide, we should be frustrated now, we should do something else. So the suffering is all right there. And when you can just go, I hear you, and I'm going to feel that frustration instead of trying to avoid it. Because it's fascinating how quickly a illusionary thought can just vanish. Sometimes I notice I have to pull it apart, as in find out there might be several layers going on. There's a layer that's judging myself for feeling frustrated. Wow. So there's a whole different painful thing that's happening in the brain or the mind. And if I can pull it apart, then I'll notice the feeling of frustration is very easy it just vanishes if I'm not judging myself for having it. And there's other, of course, the mind has all kinds of ways I'm not trying to call the mind an enemy or anything like that, because the mind is also an incredibly valuable and intuitive aspect of solving problems, which is so much of what creative work, especially in making things, is about.
Yeah.
So it's very useful to just keep the awareness set to notice as much as you can what am I feeling right now? What is that? Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talk about pulling it apart to see the layers, like, what does that look like for you? What does it feel like? Let's say you're in there in that moment, or maybe you could even give us a moment, like, let's say you're working on a poem or you're working on a sculpture and you get to that moment.
Yeah. Well, it is, again, when I remember, I have times where I'll remember by shouting about something, I'll shout my frustration and say, wow, what is that? I'm in charge of this. Well, I'm not so sure I am in charge of it. But anyway, so the moment can be, that might be a time to stop for a minute and say, wow, you really feel frustrated, don't you? Like the way I might with one of my children or something when they were little. Mm. And I can say, okay, so what's in this? And sometimes I can find 3 layers. Like, as I said, there's the frustration, but then it's wrapped up in some kind of judgment or idea that I shouldn't feel this way because what? I'm beyond that or something. And then I can go, well, wait, I am human on a planet where I'm limited as a human. And there's only so many things we can do here. And so it's okay to be frustrated. So let's set that aside. Then what's the frustration exactly? You want to be doing something else, or you want this to be done more quickly? Like, say, in a big welding project, there might be a lot of welds to grind, especially when you're a beginner welder. And that can be hard to get at, and each one takes focus to do it as well as you can. And so when you can just back off to that, let myself feel the frustration, of course, that's always key, but then let go of the judgment and then come back to, there's just this weld. That's all the one. It's the only one there is. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, it can be all done. Mm. And once again, I don't always get there that quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like a way of almost parenting yourself, like the kind, like you speaking to yourself and that one part of you speaking to another part of you, mm-hmm. and with compassion and genuine curiosity. That's what I'm hearing from you. Like, well, what is going on here? Not a foregone conclusion, or I'm going to jump to the last layer of this because I know where it's going. Like, it sounds like there's a real, like, kind of parental patience and curiosity there with oneself. Would you say it feels
Absolutely.
Like that?
I keep using that word. I should find another way to say it. But it's very clear to me that the most difficult aspect for me has been to remember to treat myself, even the little boy of myself, the way I tried as hard as I could to treat my daughters when they were young. Mm-hmm. And I notice how often I get frustrated just with exactly that for myself. And really, I've been doing this kind of work for 40 years now, and it's still amazing how often I'm not even noticing a frustration or an anger go by until I stop for a second and go, wow, you wouldn't treat anybody on the planet like that. But here it is, just some little inner loop. And why can't I change that? And you can. In the last year, I've had a lot of great experiences with recognizing the young boy that's in there, and remembering the details of times when I was sort of shut out. Nobody explained to me. Nobody came to me and said, of course, again, this isn't always true, but there were times when nobody followed up on something where I got yelled at or made a mistake. And so it helps me now with grandchildren. When they're around, I can notice that same thing come up and I can back off from it. Mm. So it is a lifelong process as far as I can tell. There's always more. Mm. There's always a deeper level of judgment or, so many different analysis aspects that we
right.
are living with all the time. And nobody even knows. We're yelling at ourselves. And like if there's one person you're always around, it's right here. And if you can't work on that relationship, I can say that working on that relationship does help your relationships with everybody else. Because that compassion just, you realize, well, it's all me. Those other people are me too. So why wouldn't I be kind to them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's really rich. Yeah. It's interesting how that, like the self-critical voice, noticing where that comes from in the little boy, Don, or, our childhoods. And I mean, one way to get back to that or to do that kind of noticing is through therapy. But it's interesting how just spontaneously it can, meditation practice or in the moment, carrying a meditative quality into our day, into our self-noticing, can address it as often as it comes up, which is, often constantly.
Yes.
Those tapes that keep playing. In Buddhism, there's the expression, the second arrow. So the first arrow being the kind of suffering that's unavoidable in life, like physical pain, aging, death. So you stub your toe, there's pain. You can't avoid that. We're embodied. But the second arrow would be, oh, stupid. Why didn't I see that table leg there? And then the second arrow is really what we end up carrying in the tape, the inner tape. So bringing that up to conscious awareness is really powerful.
Yeah, very true. And it, are we in control anyway, of whether we stub our toe? It just, that opens another really important question is how much control do we have? It shows up in, this is something I learned from writing this book about my sculpture. I learned more about what it takes to let go and just see what happens. And which could be what's happening anyway. It could be that no matter what we set out to do, something else is what comes about. So I can remember lots of times when especially when I was designing and building furniture, which that has gone along with everything else in my life for 50 years now. But I'd have a design, the customer has okayed the design, and then there's the problem of how to make it. And I remember that situation sometimes of, you've got to get over, I'm going to have to start cutting the boards, and I have to have enough, like which part should I cut out first? And there's that moment where you have to take the leap and start, okay, I'll do these parts first. And it's another like daily breakthrough to think, okay, I think I can get it all out of these boards if I start here. Yeah, that's very dramatic. I mean, as a writer, I take leaps, but I can always go back and delete or change. But I can see how making that first cut in a board is a real act of trust, I guess, and also surrender to whatever is going to happen thereafter. Yeah. Is that what you mean by giving up control, or how much are we in control anyway? Yeah, basically, there's going to be many times in the construction of a piece where the next step is not obvious about how you're going to make it all fit together. And so it's in the moment that you figure out, oh, I know. Sometimes you have to get the first few parts together, and then you can see what the next step could be. Whereas if you try to think that all out, well, then you're in a factory. Then you're in mass production, it seems like, which I never could do. And it was always a challenge to my work that, speaking of boredom and frustration, it's very hard for me to make the same thing over again.
I've never seen that in your work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you said earlier, I just wanted to touch back on that. You were talking about two kinds of quality of consciousness, one where you're writing or sculpting or creating, and then a different when you're kind of stepping back and looking at it. Mm-hmm. Or the judging is the wrong word, but looking at it with a different kind of eye or different quality of consciousness. Did I hear that differentiation in something you were saying earlier?
Well, writing is probably the easiest example of that, partly because, as you said, you can change it. You're not stuck with what you've done. But I find that, and you probably find this as well, that when you're actually composing, it's best to just run with it. In fact, that's a place where my relationship with writing, like, for example, writing in between, I had some ideas about what I wanted to learn from going over my sculpture again. And I wanted to learn something new. And so part of that was to recognize that there is that place where you're just moving forward and pouring it out. And so for me, I have a long experience with journaling, and particularly with characters who show up in my journal, particularly one named Sophie, who has been coming to me for 30 years now. She'll just jump right in there and say, blah, blah, blah. And what she's pointing to is that I'm going off track. I'm starting to go into biography. And I wanted a little bit of biography or story, but mostly I wanted to talk about the work, and what I learned from it. And so I could just, take that blah, blah, blah and go, she might also say, just talk about the work. It's about the work. And so then I could just start. So the rough writing has all kinds of that kind of false start, you might say. And maybe there's something in that false start that it works. But as soon as I've gone off track, that's the part that later can get edited back out again. Mm-hmm. And it really worked. Since I was going over sculptures from the last 40 years, there's a tendency to want to tell all about, and here I was getting divorced or whatever, Mm-hmm. And that doesn't matter to this story, It doesn't matter what put me in the position. It's the, what did I do with it?
Yeah. So now I have two kind of different questions I want to ask you based on what you just said. So one is, I'm curious to hear how the writing of the book, which is this gorgeous retrospective of your work to date, of your sculptural work to date, starting with your abstract wood sculptures and how you evolved from a furniture maker, a wood crafter, to making abstract wood shapes, and then more representational. Some of your work became more representational, and then moving into metal. And it's this beautiful, beautiful book, photographs, and then these little bits of, there were actually like little poems in a way that go with each piece that are like a little window into it, which I really appreciate, especially seeing three-dimensional work in a two-dimensional form in the book. It really gives dimension to it. So I wanted to ask how the writing of the book was perhaps a kind of meditation in itself for you, a meditation on your work, on your life's work, and if that changed your relationship to the work or revealed things to you. And then I want to ask about your relationship to this character who shows up in your journals, Sophie. I don't want to leave her out of this conversation because I'm totally fascinated. So whichever of those you want to take first.
Well, I'll start with Sophie because she's been around longer. Actually, that came from back in the early 90s, I was teaching a writing workshop that I called Writing for Self-Discovery. Writing for Self-Discovery. And it was interesting that a number of men's groups around town brought me in to give that workshop to them. It'd take about 4 sessions. And about that same time, I was using the journal. Part of it was doing that workshop, we'd have like 4 sessions, but in the 4th one it'd lead up to a inner shamanic journey in writing, which is very much a journaling, but going into a sacred space. I took it from Robert Johnson's Inner Work book, which is a fascinating mixture of dream work and sort of the waking dream of a shamanic journey. And things happened even when I was just being the teacher, when I couldn't really dig into it because I was monitoring the students, that kind of thing. But things happened that really surprised me in there, so I started using that in my private journal work as well. And about that same time is when do you remember those Conversations with God books? I can't remember the author of those, but they were...
I don't, actually.
He did a series of books back there in the late 80s, 90s, where he would be journaling and asking God questions and getting answers. And I read his first book, and I was going, wait, my God wouldn't say that. And so I started sort of trying it in my journal, and a really strong and, I want to say, maybe contiguous, a voice that stayed very much the same would show up and answer my questions or make comments. And so that's been with me for a long time now.
Beautiful.
And still shows up quite regularly. And it was really, I was talking to a friend one day, and I said, I don't think it's God, so to speak. I was raised Catholic, so I didn't want to lay on sort of the Catholic version of God to that. And she just said, oh, I think her name's Sophie. And so I stuck with that for all these years. And of course, now I can't remember the other question. Do you?
Well, I'll remind you in a minute, but
okay.
Sophie reminds me of Carl Jung's Red Book. He detailed his visions, really, like waking dreams, and gorgeously illustrated. And there's a recurring character named Philemon, who is beautifully painted on the pages of the Red Book, and he speaks to Carl Jung in a way that reminds me of the way Sophie speaks to you.
Yeah.
Although your relationship with Sophie might be even longer, over spanning many decades, than Carl Jung's relationship to Philemon. And it's very interesting how she shows up. If I'm hearing you correctly, that she shows up not even on the page when you're journaling, but she might show up in the middle of making a sculpture, or in this example, working on your book in between Creativity Set Free, about your sculpture, that Sophie would pop up and say, wait a minute, we don't need to know about your divorce.
Yeah, really. How does that add to the story?
My other question was about that process of writing the book, and if that was a kind of meditative process for you, if it changed your relationship to the work, if it revealed things to you about your own work and about yourself. Because actually you say in the book, you say it's yourself you're making. When you look back, your own accrued shape appears in the spaces between the things you fashioned. Such an evocative sentence.
Yeah.
Your way of looking back, and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, that was a 2-year project. I guess I'd say 2 years from when I started saying to people that I was going to write a book about my sculpture. And mostly what would happen was I'd write a few sentences, and then I'd go look for... I have done quite a bit of writing for blog posts and for newsletters, things like that over the years. So I started gathering all of those. And many of those, particularly the quotes that begin each chapter, are from those old blog posts. And my partner, Debbie, helped pick out the ones that she found really resonant. So I had those, but I wasn't getting to the narrative of the work until just last August. I suddenly remembered there's a period when I had been making furniture for 16 years, and suddenly I decided to go back to school and learn about writing. I had never finished my undergrad degree at that point. And there was a program at the Evergreen State College here in town that was called Writing from Experience. And Kate Crow was the teacher of that. And I took the course one summer, and it was great learning how to write from things you've already done. But at the end of it, she said to me, well, why would you want to go back to school and just go over what you've already done? Don't you want to do something new? So I did. I came back to school in writing and finished up my undergrad degree and then got an MFA in creative writing and literature from Bennington College. The fascinating thing was in August this last year, I was thinking about this process and why I wasn't digging into it. And I said, okay, I know what it is. I don't want to write this unless I learn something new from doing it. I don't want to just recount the story. And so it was very much a part of it. And that's why I think Sophie began to coach me in there and help me notice when I was just going into old stories I've told before. And very much began to see right from the New Zealand sculptures back in the 86 and 87, that point when I made the turn from furniture to sculpture, right in the middle of making a chair down in Christchurch, New Zealand. It was just looking at it and going, I've made chairs, What would happen if I just started exploring form itself? Mm-hmm. So out of utility, out of even recognized, as something, I wanted us to start making things that that are only what they are, which is true of us if we let ourselves free from the constraints that we come here with. What I heard something. Somebody told me a quote the other day that she attributed to Byron Katie. She said, your astrological or human design structure is the box we're here to learn how to get out of. And I thought, see, there it is. We come here into these limited forms. That's the way I look at it. Mm-hmm. And we learn all the limits, the things our parents teach us and our teachers teach us, the things that we are allowed to do here, particularly if you've been raised in a religion that has lots of rules. There's always somebody telling you what you can and can't do. But when you can open, just keep opening, why can't I do it? That's what makes us unique. You notice a person that is just speaking the party line. Well, I've heard that before. What's unique about you? Tell me something unique about you. Maybe some way you have of looking at the world. And so then questioning my own. Why do I think that way about things, other people, political parties, whatever. I mean, there's things you prefer. And there's good reasons for it, things you find beautiful or inspiring. But there's also, what about the other things? Once again, even just the logical aspect, it's all you. So why would you be dismissing parts of it without even considering?
Yeah. So that's some really powerful questioning right there. Mm-hmm. And Byron Katie is a fantastic teacher for that kind of inner reckoning. I love that moment in the book where you write about that first sculpture that you made in New Zealand. So you were a beautiful furniture maker. You were making one of a kind. The furniture itself, each one was a work of art. Mm-hmm. And then there was some shift that took place where you have the piece, or started the pieces of this chair, and then I guess it was a questioning voice came in, or something came in and said, well, maybe you take it from here, like that, because that, I see how that moment, whatever happened in that moment, that moved you from being a furniture maker, a fantastic furniture maker, to a sculptor, and then many other transformations of yourself to different kinds of sculpture and poetry. But that pivotal moment seems very powerful. And I'm just curious, like, if you can bring us back to the wood shop there, and you're holding those pieces in your hand, like, what happened? Was it a meditative process? Was it a inner questioning, or what moved you to make it not into a chair?
That is the $1 million question. Yeah, because I don't know. I remember it. It was a crisis, absolutely, because I had received a lot of honor for being a furniture maker. That's where I was making money. People loved my furniture, and I kept making furniture after that. But I was in New Zealand for a year with my family, 2 daughters and my then wife. And I had found that I could have shop space at this College of Fine Woodworking in Christchurch in New Zealand. It was just one of those situations. Wow, how does this even happen that I've come to this country so far away and I've got this great shop to work in? And there was a wood sculptor from Montana was also working there, and he was putting together pieces for a show. And they were just cartoonish. It was amazing. They were so free. I remember the morning that I was standing there at that bench, and I had made the parts it's right here in front of me, so I'm looking at it. I had made the back posts and the front legs and the arms. And I think it would have been a really nice chair. But I knew how to make chairs. I didn't know how to just make something that has a form of its own and can enter the imagination of those who see it. And, it means different things to different people. The very nature of abstract art is what all the different ways people can see what's in it, that I can't imagine. So, yeah, there's been many of those moments, and they were hard moments because I had to let go of, the honor that I had received from people for, they love my furniture, and just do something. I don't know, how do you deal with that? And so really that's part of the reason for the name of the book, In Between, is that that remained. I kept making sculpture in between the clients.
Oh.
So there was always that freedom of designing something to meet the client's needs is one thing, and I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. But there was that part of me that, what would I make if I was just making stuff? And that's where the sculpture came in.
Yeah.
And so that's why I still have all of those. I have about 40 pieces of sculpture that have showed all over the Northwest, and most of them keep coming home. So they were right here for me to look at and write about.
Yeah. I wondered where the title of the book came from, In Between. And it seems like over the years, the in-between space has stretched. Maybe in the early years, you had little time in between the commissions to do more sculptural pieces, and then that evolved to doing only sculpture. Yeah.
There was a period, particularly when I went back to school, that was a big reboot, you might say, for me, because it didn't look to me like furniture was going to give me any way to retire. And it's hard work. There's an awful lot of heavy work that involves moving boards and furniture around. It took about 10 years to go back to school and learn other skills, although it's intriguing that I chose things that aren't that easy to make a living from, like one-of-a-kind woodworking, like poetry. Like I took a program in alternative healing, energetic healing. And so after that 10 years, no new avocations showed up. So I had kind of killed my furniture business by then, too. I'd only kept a few things going until one of my old clients called me one day and said, "You still making furniture?" And my net worth had hit zero right about then. And so I said, "Yeah." And I borrowed a friend's shop and made some cabinets for him. And really, the best work of my furniture life came in that next 15 years. So there's a way in which I was getting away from what I was actually here to do. But I also was much more committed by that time to keeping the sculpture going at the same time. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And if any of you listeners who want to see that first sculpture, the chair, or any of Don's work, can find it on his website, donfreas.com. And we'll mention that again at the end of the show. But that's a beautiful story. Don, you often insert this phrase, well, it's all you anyway.
Yeah.
Can you say what you mean there? That's probably a big question, but
it is big. I guess for me, I read a lot, and I've studied a lot of different teachers. I've been in programs with lots of different teachers of the spiritual ilk, for lack of a better word. In many ways, what I've come to realize is that it's all spiritual. It doesn't get packaged into churches or anything like that. So every teacher I've worked with, I noticed that ultimately I would really dig in and apply everything I was learning. But then it became, there's still more though. I have to, in a way, I think the best teachers are the ones that graduate you, that they send you off into the world. Okay, I've done what I can do for you. Go find your own thing now. And there's many teachers who don't do that, but that's what came for me. And so a lot of when you read, even the Bible and all the ancient texts, it's all there that we're all one, and they're not talking in metaphors with that. It is all, and physics is starting to talk about this, and has been for like 100 years now. There's physicists like David Bohm who get it, that we're in a way creating the world as we move. And what I understand about that is that what we're creating is our own relationship with the world and our own understanding of the world. So even logically, even if one has not had some, let's say, enlightenment experiences of actually experiencing oneness with the world, or with the universe, you might say, it's still logical to go, I'm going to believe that I am one with everything. And then use that.
I love the word logical there.
Yeah, right.
It's true.
Yeah, and so you just accept it. Why wouldn't it be like that? And so then what does that mean? So then it becomes a love. And other traditions say it's all love. So what is that? Maybe atoms are love. It becomes that I'm going to see how much I can apply that. And so by just reminding myself that it's all one, it's all me, just as it's all everybody else. I mean, we can go grandiose about that and say it's all me, but not them, which so many people seem to do that. So keeping the humility of it's all me, but it's all them. It's all the others too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an idea, or not an idea, it's a reality that's been around for a long time. The mystical body of Christ is that, right? And Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk had this beautiful expression, interbeing, where he would talk about, like, let's say a piece of paper. He would say, well, there's sun in this paper. The sun is in this paper because the sun was shining on the tree that grew, that was made into the paper. And rain is in this paper, and the earth is in this paper, and breath is in this paper, and atoms from, someone's body from centuries ago, and everything is in the paper. The sky is in the paper. And it's not poetry. It's actually physics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, even time is in that paper. There's some great, Einstein had a favorite science fiction author that he really liked. And I think that science fiction author was a physicist as well. And he wrote stories that would say they'd fly out to a distant star and look back at the Earth, and you're going to see it a long time ago. Because the light has taken that much time to get there. So you're going to see the light from the Earth back when there were cavemen or something, And so it's all existing out there. The light we see has come to us from sometimes billions of years ago. And so what would we see if we could capture the visions from that light,
That's beautiful, yeah. So this truth, this, like, it's all you, it's all love. We're all each other. When you go, to the grocery store or fill your gas tank, or like how present is that with you, or when does it escape you, or when does it, like, or in your art making, is that, like you say, it's logical to believe it even if we haven't had, let's say, a mystical experience of unity, or we haven't had an experience in prayer or meditation of unity, which people have had throughout time, and the mystics write about it. So, but for most of us, we kind of go on faith, right? So it is logical to acknowledge it, and yet logic can fail us when we're stuck in traffic.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's that opportunity, when the traffic one is a great one. Why do I think that person took an extra second to start up from the stoplight, and why do people honk at me when it takes me 3 seconds to start up? And I get frustrated. But then I could also just be thanking them for honking at me, so I noticed that the light had turned green. So, as I say, I can't always pull myself back to the true present right now. But I'm getting better. I would say it used to take me a couple of days, and this is one of the reasons I think journaling is so valuable, because I can look back at something that I was, let's say, suffering and writing about a couple of days ago and go, oh, that was an opportunity that I didn't notice at the time, So one of the things I have sometimes with the journal is that if I get to the journal and I go, I don't know what I want to write. This is just, I'm talking about the weather. Who cares about the weather? And I'll go back. What was I writing a year ago? What was I writing 5 years ago? And I find that that's often really interesting. I'll go back and see. I didn't know I knew that back then. I think I forgot, So there is something about it is a meditation over time with journaling. And by leaving a trace, by writing what you're thinking, the same with a shamanic journey can be done just in the imagination. You can just imagine, okay, I'm going through a cave and now I'm in the shamanic land and I'm walking along the river and this person shows up to tell me something. But if you're writing it, then, you're keeping the brain busy and the mind busy forming the words. And it's remarkable what'll show up. I've had whole whole sculpture series show up from something that happened in one of those events.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That book that you mentioned, Robert A. Johnson, Inner Work.
Yeah.
I have used that as well for dream interpretation. Half of the book is about dream interpretation, and the other half is about active imagination. They're both based on Carl Jung's teachings. And I think what you're describing is like active imagination, where you have the shamanic journey on the page, and you write a dialogue, and the characters respond to you, and the responses can be something that would not come from your own mouth.
Yeah. As that grew into the conversation with Sophie, it became that I can say there are dozens of times, most often I can say, well, I'm just writing Sophie. But then there's that time, there's a breakthrough where she says something I was not ready to say to myself. And so it's cultivating that, sticking with it so that it is there when it's really needed. And I think there's a connection with that to the Akashic Record. If I've learned to read the Akashic Record, which is something that not everybody believes in that, let's say. But when I learned that, I said, oh, this is where Sophie comes from. She's kind of like a voice from sort of the long history of humanity or of the universe, the library that contains everybody's stories and memories.
Can you say a little more about that, about the Akashic Records for people who are not familiar with it, and what your experience has been?
Yeah. I have a friend who had taken training from Linda Howe in reading the Akashic Records, and she read for me a couple of times, and I said, wow, that's a lot like talking to Sophie. And then I had a reading with Linda Howe, and I said, I'm going to go take some classes. So it's a tradition from India. I can't remember if it's Hindu. I haven't studied deeply into the Hindu material. I've read quite a few things, but I don't recall enough to be a spokesman for it. But I know the Akashic Record is part of the tradition out of India and is a accessible, you might say a cloud in the modern idiom, in which there is everything is stored and you can access it. Linda Howe uses a particular prayer to enter the library, and you can ask questions. Generally, you can't just say, tell me what I need to hear. It definitely has a tone of what do you want to know? And very often, whatever question you ask will take you back to a past life. Some of the real power of the work is that it shows us pretty much every time that you've experienced every side of every situation. You've been the abuser and you've been abused. And this is the case. And it fits right in with this idea that we are all one. So every experience on the planet right now, there are how many? 8 billion different experiences and understandings going on. And I am all of those. And so even if there's not, if the belief that says these are all the stories from all life that has ever happened, you can just tune into what's going on right now and have every experience, the most blissful and the most horrific. They're all right here.
Yeah, that's so true. It's this Earth is literally polar, right? The planet is polar, and it's a place of, as we're experiencing, of extraordinary polarity, joy and suffering, and it seems like a place of great compression. But if you're thinking of it this way. I think it's Byron Katie who uses the expression earth school, that we bring ourselves into this realm, this dense realm, finite, temporal, to have all of these experiences, to learn and evolve our consciousness.
Yeah, if you want to think of, say there is an all-knowing creator that is all-powerful. The one thing that all-knowing creator couldn't do was be limited. And so it became this, why don't we create this space where we can learn about suffering? And, there is also that piece. Life is so short, and we come here and we have experiences, we die, and then we look back at it maybe. I don't know, I haven't been dead that I remember. And then there's the, how do we deal with the programming and the challenges of growing up in a culture that becomes a group of limited thinking, and how do we learn about what we really are and expand ourselves? Yeah, so there is I hold with that idea that we're here to come to know who we are, to come to know, well, even to love ourselves, and then spread that out, as we get more connected to our own self, we get more connected to everybody else as well. And you're the only one that can know who you are and know the pains and what the particular challenges that we each have. So getting to know that becomes your uniqueness. It's the thing that has never existed before. And so.
That's beautiful, Don, and it's a beautiful place to start wrapping up. But I'm struck by that. You say, like, let's say there was or is an all-knowing creator who came to a moment of, what if I experienced separation or limitation, and what could be learned from that? Like, just saying that as a thought experiment, right? But that moment reminds me of a moment earlier in this conversation where you moved from making furniture to, I wonder if this chair wants to be something else. And when you were talking about that moment, you used the word crisis, which struck me. You said it was a crisis, and you had to give up what you were. You had to give up the Don Freas, who we all know as the extraordinary furniture maker. And so it was a kind of death and birth into something unknown, that big leap, big creative leap.
Yeah, of course, that's how it seemed at the time. But of course, it was a leap into expansion. And very true. And I can think of several other experiences like that where I had to step off an edge and fall. And there's one when I started making the wooden abstracts, which are one of the chapters of the book about my sculpture. There was that moment of, okay, what would happen if I just took these scraps of wood and tapered them and beveled the edges and started gluing them together? I don't know for sure where that came from. It was a playful idea. I was in the middle of another project, and there were a lot of scraps of mahogany around. And I just did it, and I glued them together. And then I knew from sculpture ways of smoothing and carving what was left from that. As I said in the book, several of those pieces, I'd glue them up and smooth them out and go, what is this? I don't know what this is. How would I even know when it's done? Would you? Because I could always keep adding more to it. I remember 3 or 4 of those playful constructions just ended up on a shelf in the shop. because I didn't know. Maybe that's a failure. I don't know what has happened. But then the same gallery that I'm going to be in, I have a show in March and April this year of a retrospective of my sculpture. That same gallery called me up and said, "Hey, you got anything? We're doing a group show." And kind of like when my old customer called me up and asked if I was still making furniture, I said, "Oh yeah, I have some pieces, some new pieces." And so that gave me the deadline to say, well, turn them into something and put them on a stand in the gallery and let people tell me if they're done or not. That led me to more and more. I suppose there were about 6 or 7, maybe 8 of those wooden abstracts. It's just fascinating to feel that way, that it's just stepping off the edge. It was play. And when you put it in that mood, I thought, well, maybe I could make some money. Maybe I would be able to sell these. Maybe it could become a whole new career, just like writing or hands-on healing that didn't turn into a living. But the best things don't, they're just... Because it kept me free. I could keep just doing...
Yeah.
I could switch over to the tension trap sculptures or the, other ones. A gallery said, we could sell more of this. Well, they hadn't sold any of it, but we could sell more of this if it could be outdoors. And so that's when I started welding. Such a great process to start another process in which I'm all thumbs. I don't know how to do it. It's so good for us to step out of, the main thing all the way back when I was in New Zealand and I was going to try sculpture instead of furniture. The standard idea is if you get good at something, keep doing it. Do more of it. And that didn't work for me. I had to, I already got good at that. Why don't I do something else?
Yeah.
At least in between.
Yeah, that's a trap in fiction writing too. You can, sell one good book and then, okay, now I know how to do it. And then the next book tells you, I have different requirements.
Yeah, and music too. Yeah. So many people become famous in a certain rock and roll category or something, and then, okay, I'm sick of that. I'm thinking of Elvis Costello, for example. He was a great punk guy, and he became a jazz person. I think it's really important to not let the marketplace tell you what you should do next.
Yeah, I love your spirit of play and experimentation and trust, really radical trust.
Yeah.
It feels very rich and I feel very full.
Great.
I feel really, really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, I'll just ask you what might be next for you creatively or meditatively, or if you want to mention the gallery show and how people can find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can spell my name, you can find my website. It's Don Freas, DonFreas.com. And the show I have coming up opens March 8th in Olympia, Washington at Childhood's End Gallery, where I have shown all the way back to 1980 was the first time I showed furniture there. And there will be a opening, if you happen to be nearby Olympia, there will be an opening reception on the 9th of March. And it's a 7-week show. There will be a artist talk. I don't think anybody's planning to broadcast that in any way, but an artist talk on the 16th of March, and the show closes April, I believe, 21. What's next for me is I'm really intrigued with, there are ways that my body's not putting up with the heavy work of woodwork, which includes sculpture on any scale that's larger than even small pieces. These pocket sculptures I used to do require an awful lot of repetitive motion with the wrists, and my body isn't putting up with that anymore. And so the material meditation of the work, I'm missing it. I love to go up to the shop and get lost in a task like that, a making task. Mm-hmm. And so I'm leaning back towards writing because I can still do that physically. Mm-hmm. And so there's a little bit of lostness going on, maybe some other cliff I have to jump off, figuratively speaking. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what that is. I think finishing the book really made me aware that that piece is closing in a way. It could be that there will be opportunities to speak or talk about it or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure. It's a big world that's opening up with a body that's closing over the next 30 years, let's say. Yeah.
I love your openness and trust in whatever's next. That's the spirit with which you've done your work over all these years, and it really shows. It really shows in the spontaneity and the beauty and the uniqueness of every piece you've done and every poem you've written. So thank you for sharing about your work. Thank you for sharing about your process and your meditation, your Qigong, your journaling practice with Sophie is so fascinating. Your exploration of the Akashic Records and all the ways that you have explored and deepened, and how that has not just informed your creativity, but really been a living part of it. So it's very inspiring, and very grateful that you could spend this time with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, and it's fascinating for me to try to put it together out loud. So thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And listeners, treat yourself by looking for finding Don's poetry, Swallowing the World, new and selected poems, and this book that we've been talking about his sculpture, In Between, Creativity Set Free. Thank you so much, Don Freas.
Thank you, Tess.